All right.
Audio. Chair Edwards.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning. This is a committee meeting scheduled for the Education Committee, and we're here to discuss, get an update from our executive director on the status of our educational programs. And I'll turn the meeting over to Commissioner Berland. Executive Director Berland.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just state that this meeting is being held pursuant to notice and in accordance with the provisions of the state's open meetings law and executive law section 94. Both the conference room we're using at the commission's offices at 25 Beaver Street in Manhattan and the conference room at the commission's offices in Albany at 540 Broadway are open to the public during public session, as is the location at 1051 Meridian Avenue, Miami Beach, Florida, from which Commissioner Karras is attending the meeting. Let me also state that Committee Chair Edwards is participating in this meeting by video conference pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 103-A, and the Commission's rules and resolutions for remote participation on account of extraordinary circumstances. And I can state that there is a quorum for the committee meeting present, both here in Manhattan and in Miami. If I may, Chair Edwards, the second item on the agenda after the call to order is the 2026 ethics training proposal that staff has proposed to the commission to address the number of individuals who did not receive mandatory ethics training, particularly in 2025, as well as some number of individuals who didn't receive training in 2024. Staff has prepared for committee members and those commissioners who were attending two charts broken down by agency. They're the same chart, they're just ordered differently. The first shows the most compliant.
Are you going to put the charts
agency.
up? Are you going to put the charts up on the screen, or do you want me to go to my book?
No, we were going to do it from the hard copy. We don't have them online unless.
But Claudia, they're in the book
Yeah.
that was emailed to us
Yes,
a little while ago.
Yeah, I can't. I only have one screen. I can only view one thing at a time.
Oh,
So-
okay. Yeah, we sent it out yesterday. Yeah, I mean, if you need it on the screen, we can get it up on the screen. It was really more for illustrative purposes to show you that the agencies cover a wide spectrum, from better than 100% compliance in some instances. So they've had multiple trainings of individuals during the year, and they've trained more people because of turnover than their enrollment. And at the other extreme, we have agencies that have trained comparatively few
So
of their employees.
can somebody just explain sort of briefly, there are, it looks like certainly more than a dozen agencies that had no training whatsoever. Is there are there particular circumstances about each one, or is there a more generalized reason?
I should explain the charts too. This is the data taken from our state ethics training application. So that's a large database that the unit has built in conjunction with state information technology services. And what we've done is over time, and it's taken a couple of years to do it, we have gathered select data on employees of all state agencies in the executive branch. Good deal of the data comes from the controller's office for employees. They don't have data for authorities, so we've had to enter into separate agreements and arrangements to obtain that data from the authorities, which account for a substantial number of employees. we're now at the point where we've captured most, but not all agencies. So we have in this database, you'll see a total.
So some of these might be newly captured agents.
So some may be newly captured. It's a dynamic workforce, but the other part of it is not every agency is supplying us at this point with all of the compliance data. So if they're doing live trainings, they have to enter it into the system. We don't have access to that. Some of them are using the state learning management system to schedule their live trainings. And that data takes some period of time to import.
Got it.
And then there's information we do capture from those who are taking the on-demand course online, but it's not complete. We have a separate database that provide larger figures in terms of compliance. And some of those agencies will be picked up on that. They called in aggregate numbers and we've entered them into a separate database. I don't know, do we have Marlena or Audrey? Are they in the meeting? Can you tell Michael?
Marlena was there earlier.
Okay.
I'm here. I can see New York. Hello, Commissioner Edwards. Hello, the rest of the Commission Board. Happy to be here. So just to kind of clarify a little bit of what Sandy is pointing out, we collect, as most of you are aware, two separate distinct types of training data. We call one subset of data agency reported, which we consider aggregate data. So on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, we compile the statistics of what agencies are reporting to us, how well they're doing with their overall training compliance. So that's one subset of information. The table that you're looking at now represents the actual data. So what I mean by that is we have employee data, as Sandy had been discussing, and this table represents how well those completions on the individual employee level are being recorded and tracked. So in certain cases, I think as Sandy was trying to illustrate, is that there may be aggregate stats related to some of these smaller boards and commissions. A great example here is that we just completed an outreach call with Roswell Park. Despite the fact that they may show as 0 trainings recorded, we know there has been a substantial amount of training that occurred for that specific entity in 2025. The issue that we're trying to correct is making sure that those agencies who have yet to provide us with actual employee level data are able to do so. So that's one entity in which we've already conducted outreach. We're in the process of collecting that employee data, and in addition to that, also collecting their completion dates. But we wanted to give you a more accurate representation of moving away from those aggregate stats. So moving away of what those agencies are reporting and giving you a little bit more information on how well the state overall is doing with respect to tracking individual employee names in the system.
And let me introduce Marlena. Marlena is the Senior Director of our educational unit, which services both the Ethics Division and the Lobbying Division. So she and those who work under her are responsible for supporting not just workforce ethics training, but ethics training for lobbyists and clients who also have a mandatory ethics training requirement, as well as other training initiatives, particularly in the Lobbying Division. The aggregate data will show somewhat differently. So we're looking at, I think, roughly 67% compliance here for 2025 based on the individualized data. At the aggregate level, it approaches, it's in the high 70s.
Okay, I got it.
So there are disparities, but for purposes of the proposal, this is really the data we want to look at.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. So the individuals the agency reports are the accurate ones, but the individual data, where do we get those? Where do we get those numbers from? Those are produced by us, like people who take the courses and read.
The data on this sheet, some of it's populated from those who take on demand through systems that are capturing the data. When we do the training, we enter the data, obviously for those that we train, that our unit is training live. And then agencies are entering data for the live trainings that they conduct.
So this
And there
one,
may be other data, so are there other data sources, Marlena, that are reflected in this chart, in the actual data?
So there are. So if the question, Commissioner, is how do we know who's being trained and how does that data then get reflected into SETA on the individual employee level?
Right.
The answer to that is that it happens in multiple different ways. So as Sandy was mentioning, any employee that enrolls in one of our colleague-hosted live CETC trainings, as long as they have an employee record within SETA, all of that data, all of that completion and enrollment information happens automatically in SETA. So once, our, assistant here is able to kind of do that course closeout and they mark those individuals completed, those completions are automatically reflected in the individual employee profile. And those agencies then have access through different reporting mechanisms to be able to see which employees attended training with COLIG and successfully completed the course. It's the same protocols also with that on-demand MP4. With regards to the on-demand that's hosted in the statewide learning management system, that impacts around 60% of the state workforce. We, COLIG, will export a query of those individuals that complete the on-demand, and then we manually upload that information in a mass import. In other situations, we rely heavily on our partnerships with other agencies, and we generally do anywhere from, last year alone, we did over 100 outreach calls to empower agencies on how to be able to monitor, track, and enter completion information into SETA. So it's multiple avenues. The purpose of SETA originally was to allow agencies the ability to take the training completion information they maintain either in their own learning management systems and other tracking modalities, and then be able to convert that information in a way that our application will receive. So some of it is us. When we onboard new agencies, we generally will have a grace period of time where we actually will do a lot of that training reconciliation data for them until they're more comfortable to be able to do that themselves. But it's a combination to answer your question. We do a lot of the administrative work, but with regards to the live completions, bless you. With regards to the live completions that are occurring within individual internal agencies, we rely exclusively on those agency partners to update that information into SETA.
Okay, so
thank you so much.
thank you. May I ask then, you're not using this document to determine the number of people who are delinquent in taking their training, am I correct? That these numbers are not, I'm looking at all these zeros in agencies that have not complied at all. That's because we haven't been able to integrate their numbers into these numbers. Am I correct? But you're
In
saying
certain cases,
you have other ways of ascertaining those numbers. So my question is, what are you using to determine to assume that X number of excuse me, that X number of employees have not complied this year?
we're using a combination to answer your question, Commissioner Edwards. We understand that for the majority of agencies, they're still heavily reliant and dependent for several reasons on that aggregate agency reported data. But a goal for us in 2026 is to minimize that discrepancy. So as Sandy had mentioned to you before, our overall training compliance rate right now on the individual employee level reaches around 61%. However, if we look at the aggregate data, we're up near towards 81% with the overall statewide compliance training. So it's unfair at this point, in my opinion, to only use one mechanism. We kind of have to be able to look at both sides of the data and then adequately make a determination as to those agencies who need immediate support in being able to kind of ramp up those training efforts. So we're using a combination right now. Where I'd like for us to go eventually, and we're not there yet, is exclusively being dependent on that individual employee level. That's the only way internally we're going to know as COLIG how well these agencies are doing, but we're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm. So based on what you just said, I'm thinking it's about 30% of the workforce that's not complying. That's not completed their training. But you said it's the range of 61 to 81. Then I'm thinking maybe about 30% of the population is not in compliance.
on the information that we know today, to kind of give you also a little bit of background, we are working actively right now in minimizing that discrepancy so that we can get a more truer, accurate picture of the number of employees that were trained in 2025. And what I mean by that is, I want to say at least a week ago, we provided agencies with a customized spreadsheet with the names of all of those employees who we were missing training completion dates for in 2025. In addition to that, we also provided them with an opportunity to inform us of not only what training they may have completed entering that completion date, but also additional outreach and requesting that those agencies also provide us with email addresses so that we can continue to further our own direct employee outreach. Now, the deadline for those agencies to provide us with that updated information is today. So we still have a little bit of time to determine how well some of these agencies have done throughout the 2025 period. But we don't have that information just yet. But to your point, yes, I would say it's a safe estimate to assume that's around 30% non-compliant based off of today's data.
Okay, thank you. Listen, Sandy, I only have one screen, so I can't acknowledge people's raising their hands. You're going to have to do that for me because I can't see you now if I'm looking at the charts.
Sure, we can do that. Unless there are any other questions about the data. So the proposal from staff, which we had initially put in front of the commission as a February commission meeting, and which we would like to discuss this morning or this afternoon, is rather than as originally planned, requiring those individuals in the workforce that number we'll estimate is 30%. We don't know for sure. It will likely shrink. But whatever that figure is, the original plan was to allow a grace period for those individuals who didn't complete the training in 2025 to complete it in 2026. And then have them and their agencies go on to train everyone who's due for training, which is the entire workforce, in 2026. We realized, given the number and given the challenges that agencies have in meeting the base requirement of ensuring that everybody's trained every year, we realized that adding the individuals who are in that shortfall, that number that's in excess of 90,000 individuals, and it could be over 100,000 who require training, that it would be more practical and make more sense instead to require agencies to provide our training unit with their plan for getting those individuals who didn't train in 2025 and some who didn't train in 2024 trained in the first part of 2026. So to provide us with a plan for achieving that, and then go on to provide us with a plan working with us for ensuring that the remainder of the respective workforces receive the required training this year so that we don't have another carryover when we go into 2027.
Yep.
So rather than asking agencies who overall have not succeeded in training 330,000 plus individuals in a year, rather than requiring them to train 430,000 in a year, we think it makes more sense, and it's a more viable option to target training the entire population with priority given this year to those who didn't train last year. Require live training, whether or not the individuals would have been eligible last year for on-demand training, require them to have live training this year, all of them, and then require agencies to provide us with plans working in conjunction with our team for how we together are going to accomplish the heavy lift of ensuring that everyone is trained at least once in 2026.
So if I'm trying to distinguish between the two plans, the original plan and this. So the new plan is to put more of the onus on the agencies to come up with mediation for the delinquents.
Well, I mean, the goal is to do it mutually. Obviously, many agencies, not all, but many agencies are having a challenge meeting this requirement. It's new in the sense that it wasn't introduced until universal training for the executive branch workforce wasn't introduced until ECRA went into effect in July of 2022.
So, I mean, then to come up with an argument for this new plan, part of it would seem to me to be, given that some of the agencies are particularly challenged, if you ask them to really focus on getting the delinquents up to speed, you're giving them a little bit of agency to consider their unique challenges. So whatever their challenge is, they know best what it is. Maybe they can best figure out how to resolve it and get the people up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, in the first instance, we're asking them to provide us with plans, but we are also making our resources available. Our training unit is conducting many live trainings throughout the year, and we can increase that as a resource. Unfortunately, the classes, until we get toward the end of the year, tend to be under enrolled. So we want to work with agencies to ensure they're taking full advantage of the resource we're providing. We want to make sure they're taking full advantage, not for the population who wasn't trained, we want live training, but for others, the opportunity for those who are eligible to use the on-demand. We want to work with them to support their data needs. We assume they have methods for keeping track of who's been trained and who hasn't been trained. Data is not necessarily flowing to us. We want to be able to support that by ensuring we have that data too. They may be having difficulty communicating with their employees and scheduling training and emphasizing to them the importance of training. So that's, as Marlena mentioned, we want to get email addresses for a larger segment of the population. We don't have email addresses for all employees. We have been sort of reluctant to take over communicating with the workforce. We want agencies to be able to control that. You want to make sure there's no confusion. But I think we're learning that we probably have to supplement their efforts and get more involved in communications. But we want to do that in coordination with agencies. So we do want agencies to come to us with ideas, but we also want to be working with them. So we have proposals that we'll talk about in greater detail on the next agenda item. We do have proposals for putting together a program for increasing outreach to agencies and working with them more closely, doing things like having focus groups, having more convocations with them to get feedback, maybe establishing a pilot program that could have common applicability, across the workforce, or for certain agencies that fall into a common category where we can better serve their needs. But the first thing we want to do, if the commission ultimately is amenable to it, is to clarify how many individuals we are going to have the system overall, that's us plus all of the agencies, attempt to train in this year. And we do think that it's an impossible burden to try to train over 400,000 people in 1 year when we know it's been difficult to train 300 some odd thousand in a year. So we want to accomplish two things. We want to take some of the pressure off. We want to make sure everybody who wasn't trained gets trained first. And we want to have big picture systems in place that are acceptable to us and mutually acceptable to agencies for making sure that the rest of the workforce also receives training in 2026.
Okay. I have a quick question.
Yes.
So we've always been working off this number of 330,000. So what you're saying is that after a full cycle of observing the training, that number really needs to be increased to about 400,000. That's about 70,000 more employees that we were not anticipating training. Is that right?
No, it's not.
No.
It's greater than, it's probably greater than 330,000. You see 347 on the chart. But what we have is a carryover from last year. So if we are going to carry that burden and train those individuals twice, we're effectively training over 400,000, pushing out over 400,000 individual trainings.
So we haven't increased the number, but because they have 2 training sessions, one live and one
In theory.
in theory. That's why we have the increased number, but it's still working with the same amount of employees.
It's the same population, but the question is whether, and we don't think it's realistic. We can train the entire workforce plus a third, give or take, of that workforce twice in 1 year.
Okay, so we need to catch
The
up.
system's just not.
But if we bring them all up to speed by offering this, by accepting your proposal, then over the next 3 years, or 2 years rather, we'll be able to manage the 345,000 that we anticipated.
Correct. That is the
That's the
goal,
goal.
Commissioner Edwards. I mean, to kind of illustrate it a little bit differently, we have to work on 2 very distinct separate tracks, right? We have to make sure that the 333,000 names that we currently have in the system are able to receive and complete training by the end of the year. But in addition to that, we also need to make sure that the employees who have yet to receive training in either 24 and 25 are prioritized. The purpose behind the proposal, which you've already indicated, is to catch those individuals up without creating further strain on our resources.
Right.
That way, we are, for the first time, trying to determine on a statewide level, is it possible, as the system is in its current iteration, able to train that full 333,000 this year without forcing that population of individuals who have not been trained to receive an additional training in the year. It just doesn't make sense to us.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
And everyone should understand that in the aggregate over the period of time since the training mandate was imposed legislatively, well over 600,000 individual trainings have been administered, over that 3-year plus period of time. So it's not as if we or the agencies haven't been working hard to get their arms around this problem. But that's, again, a 30-fold increase over what the training requirement was prior to 2022. So it's taken a lot of adjusting. And there are other factors we have to take into account. A lot of the training that's conducted, workplace training that takes place other than ethics training is administered by other individuals and entities. So we're asking a group of individuals, ethics officers and ethics trainers, to take on this huge responsibility, and it's taking time to develop the resources, certainly at their end, and for us to ensure that the resources we're providing are commensurate with their needs.
Mhm.
And we're down a trainer. With the budgetary situation, there's one more trainer we would like to hire, and we're down as well. So we have to figure out how to take the resources we have and maximize their effectiveness.
When you say down, you mean down in staffing or
Down in staffing. Yeah. Our staffing plan calls for another trainer in the unit and another data support individual.
We can't do that given the budget here.
Unless we get the additional money we've asked for,
Right.
we won't be able to fill that position.
Okay, thank you.
So the first question we have is, will the committee recommend to the full commission that the plan in our proposal under agenda item 2 to prioritize the training of those individuals who didn't receive ethics training in 2024 and 2025, prioritize their training in 2026, as well as having agencies provide us with plans for accomplishing that, rather than requiring those who didn't receive training to have 2 trainings in 2026.
So Mike, Linda, and Dolly, your thoughts? Do we agree? Do we concur?
I do.
Yes.
Sounds-
Jim might be on mute. Looks
Jim,
like
yeah.
you're trying to speak.
Oh, here he is. Jim, you're muted.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Yes, I
have it.
agree. I think it makes, it's just, it would be impossible to train tens of thousands of additional people twice in 1 year.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so we don't have to vote on this. We could just, there's a consensus among the committee members that we support this proposal.
Yes.
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 All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlena. Nice job with the entire staff. It's great.
Thank you. We really appreciate it, Commissioner Edwards. Thank you.
And then, Commissioner Edwards, you had asked staff to address 2025 accomplishments against the 3-year plan, the 2025 to 2028
Right.
plan. And Marlena and the team have put together an outline to address that. And again, as I mentioned, in addition to prioritizing the training and having plans at agencies to prioritize the training of those who didn't take training, we want to also make a very determined effort to work with agencies to develop plans to complete training as required going forward. We circulated the outline. Marlena or Audria, who's deputy director, do you want to talk to the outline and explain what steps the unit is proposing going forward?
So as I said to you yesterday, if you help me, please, when you do the outline, tie it back to the goals that for the goals outlined in the action plan for 2025-28. And again, forgive me, I can't see you if I'm looking at the goals right now, so that's all I can see.
Sandy, are you asking me to speak to the outline?
I was, but maybe we can work through. Well, let's go if we can, Commissioner Edwards. Let us go through the outline, and then we can come back.
Okay.
And go through those goals one by one.
Right. And the outline is in the book, right? Oh, I see that. No, it's not there. The outline is not in the book, right? It's in a separate email.
It's in a separate email.
Okay, I got to go back there. Okay, go.
Have our copy. This it. The action plan.
Let's see if I can.
Okay.
I can have Martha print that. All right, we're just going to print out a hard copy here.
Thank you. I guess I could get some. Suddenly I'm starving. Why would it?
Yes, today.
So this is what the document looks like. If you're all looking for it, this is what the training unit discussion outline. It was agenda item 3.
Yeah.
So as many of you are aware, the mandate for statewide training began in July 2022. SETA, our application that tracks the overall compliance of that mandate, did not become operational until January of 2024. We did not have access to employee data until July of 2024. So since the first time in 2026, we're trying to focus more, as I mentioned before, on that individual employee data. And what that allows us to do is to provide a better analysis as to the barriers that a lot of these agencies are having with regards to training. So for the first time, we have a little bit more time to be able not to focus on the whole, but to also focus at the same time on those agencies that may require additional support. this is just a preliminary outline. We understand that you're going to be looking for a much more detailed outline in terms of what that plan is going to look like. We are in the process of working together with our colleague legal team. They're in the process of developing what they refer to as this ethics officer mentorship program. We're hoping that training in partnership with that ethics officer mentorship program, utilizing our data and our analysis, will be able to have a better understanding of some of the challenges that these agencies have with respect to direct outreach, with more targeted forums, as Sandy had indicated. We'd like to be able to focus on some of these individualized groups instead of handling all of the different state agencies in one particular forum. So like to give you an example, we'd like to be able to set something up with the CUNY campuses as an example and understand what some of their challenges are, with some of the SUNY campuses and understand what their challenges are, with the smaller boards and commissions. It's going to take a significant amount of outreach in conjunction with training, in conjunction with legal. So we're looking to develop, different alternative ways in which we can accomplish those goals. We are in the process of developing a survey that we'd like to be able to send out to not only ethics officers, but also to training directors, to human resources officials, to contacts, so that we have a better understanding of who is actually administering the training program for particular agencies. If they've developed other policies, stricter policies, we've noticed a trend in late 2025 and early 2026 that we have a significant amount of agencies that are moving towards a live-only format, which means that because the administration for them is more challenging because they have employees in multiple facilities, they prefer to train all of their staff utilizing live CETC. So we're looking to figure out through surveys, through outreach, through targeted forums, what agencies are doing, what's working well for them, and then be able to kind of create this master toolkit recommendation so that we can utilize that to help support these underperforming agencies.
So I have one super minor tweak on this outline, and I think this encompasses exactly what you're saying, and that's in item number 1. I would simply say compile and analyze known barriers, because I think that's exactly what you're saying. You're not just creating this list, but you're actually thinking about what you're putting on.
That's an excellent point.
But, it sounds terrific. And I think that, this has been sort of a consistent theme in the discussion that these agencies, every agency or maybe you have some categories of agencies, but they're unique and they're going to have unique challenges. And to the extent you can tailor this without, getting so granular and so unique, you don't want to have 300 unique programs, right? But if you can come up with some things that are helpful, that'll make everybody's life easier.
No, and that's important because we don't have the resources to manage hundreds of separate compliance programs. So really, as much as the unit would be eager to do that, I think we would be diverting resources from actually pushing out trainings and providing support to managing, discrete compliance plans.
And do we do live trainings at I'm saying campuses, I don't mean like workplace. I'm thinking of kids, as you mentioned CUNY as one as one outreach agency. So would you do trainings there in their facilities, or is live training just a virtual live training?
It's virtual.
It would be mostly virtual live training. We're not in a position yet, due to the limited amount of resources that we have, since, as you know, Commissioner, it's the easiest part of our job is delivering that 2-hour live training multiple times, throughout the week. The most challenging and time-consuming part is that every member of my team is responsible for a portion of administering that training mandate, right? Whether it's doing direct outreach calls, onboarding a new ethics officer or a new training director and getting them acclimated to what the actual responsibilities are with regards to training, how to deliver training, how to track training. You know, a lot of the known barriers that we're hoping to, you know, identify, analyze, and come up with solutions for, you know, revolve around information barriers. We've noticed a huge trend at the end of 2025 and early into 2026 that there are information barriers that exist within internal agencies, meaning that sometimes ethics officers who we have designated as being responsible for the overall administration of the mandate for their agency often have difficult challenges when it comes to getting employee data within their own entity. We've heard time and time again throughout these outreach calls that a lot of the times these ethics officers and HR officials aren't sharing communication, which is making it even more difficult for them to be able to identify who needs to take training with respect to training and tracking and all of that. There are technological barriers. Not everyone is comfortable with being able to utilize an application. You know, you have different varying degrees of comfort levels when it comes to technology, when it comes to using these types of applications. We've noticed in a lot of our outreach meetings that there's, you know, unclear role distributions, meaning that we recently had an outreach meeting with an entity who the ethics division was responsible for administering the training program, but their training unit was relying on them to provide them with information as to who needed to get trained, as an example. And there was a lot of miscommunication as to who was responsible for what. Until we came in, we noticed there was a problem. We came in, we had a very successful outreach meeting with them, and we got them on, you know, we got them on target. I think a lot of these agencies that are underperforming also require us, COLIC, to provide them with some recommendations and solutions as to how to get their employees trained, whether it's, you know, individual agency counseling, whether it's we create some form of a template, whether we request that they put something in their personnel file or bring this up, you know, in a performance evaluation, and trying to determine why some of these employees may be ignoring the mandate. It's a huge, you know, it's a huge undertaking, but for the first time, we're hoping that we'll be able to focus and have a better understanding of where these communication gaps are occurring, and then come up with some plans in order to address that.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Commissioner Che, I'm sorry. Any comments from the,
No.
no?
Yes. One last one. So if we look at the last item on this outline,
Mhm.
to require the agencies to develop go-forward plans in staggered tranches, I think that's a good point. Just what, is there any enforcement about such a requirement?
There are not currently any penalties that we as a commission can impose for non-compliance with training requirements. We are required by the statute to provide compliance data to the legislature and to the governor in the aggregate on the quarterly basis, and then by agency
So
on
then
an annual basis.
you could have a name and shame.
So there is a name and shame component that's built into it, but there are no individualized penalties that we impose. We do understand that agencies themselves will track an employee's compliance with the ethics training requirement. And that may be incorporated or become an element in their annual or periodic evaluations, whether they're complying with that requirement. So there is that kind of pressure to accomplish it. We're not at the point yet of proposing, as we have with respect to ethics training for lobbyists and clients. We're not at the point yet of recommending any kind of penalty structure for that. We think it's too early to be looking for that as a remedy.
Okay.
There is the fact, and some have characterized it on the outside as maybe carrying a little bit of weight. Individuals who last year or in 2024 didn't take their ethics training and might have been eligible to do it online and take a shorter course will have to take the full, ultimately 2-hour live course. So there is that. So if they stay on track And maybe we would consider doing that on a continuing basis if you miss a training. And you're eligible for doing a shorter online course at your convenience, you may lose that opportunity.
Any discussion on holding any discussion on accountability being waged at the managers, responsible for staff getting it done? In other words,
Well-
at what level do you negotiate holding managers accountable to ensuring that their employees adhere to the training requirements?
We have done that. We had a campaign of communicating with agency heads and general counsel to inform them of the status of training compliance in their respective agencies. So we have done that kind of outreach to make sure that everybody's paying attention to the requirements and doing what they can do.
Yeah, but that's a problem.
To encourage full compliance.
Well, I see outreach and accountability are two different things to me. I don't know if you can do it in a state bureaucracy, but in other environments, part of the evaluation of management is to see to it that certain things are imposed, like meeting the requirements for ethics training.
Well, yeah, as I said, at the individual employee level, it's not something that we can do outside of our own workforce, but we do understand that there are agencies that do, and we hope all of them will take into account employee compliance with the training requirement as part of individual evaluations. Whether that moves up the pike.
Would we have to
don't
do
know.
it? Would that be a legislative policy? Would that be something for the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, looking at the powers that we have in Section 94, they would not include our ability to impose sanctions currently for failure to comply. I mean, we do have the power to administer, and we do have the power to provide regulations, but penalization is a different kind of issue, and including as an element of a manager's evaluation, their ability to have their reports comply with the requirement. It makes a lot of sense.
But we
It
don't
makes
have
a lot of sense.
we don't have the power to do that, you're saying?
It's not something that we have generally assessed. I mean, we could take a harder look at our regulatory powers and whether they would permit us to go down that path. I think first choice would be to have agencies do it voluntarily.
Right.
Maybe have the Office of Employee Relations, which doesn't have jurisdiction over the entire workforce, but does have jurisdiction over a majority of the workforce, could articulate a policy in that respect, as they have policies for compliance with other requirements, all sorts of workplace trainings that are mandatory.
It would make sense. It would make
Yeah.
sense to me to see how successful we are in bringing the workforce up to date based on the implementation of your proposal, and see where things stand next year. And if we can't seem to get everyone in compliance, I think maybe the next step would be, how do we hold the managers accountable to make to increase rate of compliance. Yes, thank you.
If I may speak
Yeah,
to that just briefly, Commissioner Edwards, I would say that one of the goals and initiatives that we have for 2026, and it may not align 100% to what you're hoping for, but what we're trying to do is create less of an adversarial role with agencies who are underperforming, and instead provide these agencies with more information. And what I mean by that is my team is in the process of developing the requirements for an agency report card. So what we want to be able to do is inform agencies on a regular basis what they're doing really well, what their current training status is, and the areas in which colleagues seek improvement from them, and kind of keep them on notice on a regular basis. And for the first time, we have a little bit more flexibility in time to be able to do that. So to your point, we may not be able to get to a point where we're having these individuals sit down and we're reflecting on them on that level, but overall, we're working on creating systems where we're informing them how well they're doing through this agency report card and then giving them opportunities for improvement.
I think that sounds great. And as I said, I think we should watch and see the outcomes as a result of that strategy. And if it's working, that's great. If not, then we need to look at other options at the next level.
Good question.
Commissioner?
Polly?
We had talked about doing like public service messaging. Are we doing that, or is that something we're thinking about? Like when you're on the subway and you see, I guess it's.
I know we made an inquiry to the Office of General Services about using electronic displays around Albany, and we were told it wouldn't happen.
Oh, okay. All right. We tried.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and unfortunately, our budget is such
I
that
know. As I was talking,
doing
I was thinking to myself,
widespread advertising is not, we used to have, the prior agencies have posters and
Yeah,
whatnot.
but you put notices
in desk
in
cards.
the newsletter you send out.
Yeah.
That sort of thing goes.
Yeah, we do
Definitely.
social media, we do newsletters,
Yeah.
we do have, we've created documents that ethics officers have access to that are exactly that, Commissioner Scott, like a little poster that they can post throughout their agency if they want it. So all of that is available to the ethics officers as well. Marlene and her team have created a great SharePoint site that has all of these resources as well.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding this outline that was presented? None. Chair James, do you have any comments on what was discussed so far?
No, I don't have any additional comment.
Okay, thank you. Sandy, can you wrap up with helping us understand, getting us a sense of where we stand with the meeting?
With the action plan, yes. So let me call everyone's attention to the action plan under the memorandum from March 14th, 2025.
Yeah, let me just get.
Oops.
Yeah, I have this title.
All right, so the first main goal was to continue to provide oversight of fellows' education and training programs. I think the committee has done that well, including today. In terms of specific goals and strategies, completing a full cycle of live on-demand training for a workforce of 320,000 people. Again, the workforce is a little bit larger than that. The number fluctuates as the workforce fluctuates. As I said earlier, in terms of a full cycle of 2 trainings, since 2022, again, we have pushed out trainings individually to more than 300,000 individuals. The total trainings are in excess of 600,000. So in gross numbers, some individuals have had more than 2 trainings. Some conceivably have had none. We don't have granular data for the period prior to 2024.
I thought we were going to wait until the end of this year so that we can present the 2-year strategy, right?
Yes, for the 2-year plan.
So you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to update us based on the experience you realized from this last year. You'll be able to update this in time for our meeting.
Yes, and the discussion we've just had, both of dealing with the shortfall from 2025, 2024,
right,
and the plan for going forward, the outline that the committee has just reviewed. Really show the steps that are being planned to implement the program going forward over the next from this year through 2028.
Right.
Again, a plan to identify and secure solutions to barriers that threaten performance. Specifically, the outline addresses that. Identifying the resources that are needed to meet the mandate. Again, that's an objective of the plan for this year. fully populate the CETA database. That's well underway. That's not 100% complete. We don't have email addresses for everyone, but we've got a large percentage of agencies in the database now. Expanding course offerings. The unit does have a very rich offering of generalized ethics training as well as agency-specific trainings, live
But-
trainings they conduct, as well as the on-demand modules they've developed.
So you'll be able to forecast so that I want to be able to measure this at the end of the year. So these strategies that you've proposed here and in your outline, you'll be able to give us a sense of a quantitative number so that we can measure the extent to which we achieve that over the upcoming 2 years. Right.
Over 2 years. The strategy calls for developing plans and gathering specific data and responding to specific needs. So we would like to complete the planning in the current year, but implementation is going to span a couple of years in order to put all of that learning.
Okay, so then
into effect.
okay, I understand what you're saying. You're still putting the process in place. So what are your benchmarks for that?
Well, again, our goal is going at the same time. It's sort of multifaceted and multi-directed. So we're going to be wanting to work with agencies and to get everybody trained this year. But I think we have to be realistic and recognize there are going to be adaptations and adjustments as we move forward on this.
Which is why I suggest.
So I don't, the goal is to train everybody this year. That is the goal. Achieving the goal will depend on how quickly whatever corrective actions, supplements, augmentations, changes.
Sandy, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
To be made.
That you were resisting for me trying to, we can't hold you to not meeting goals or exceeding goals. I'm only suggesting that the reason why we put this in place is that we can have measurable outcomes at the end of each year. And if you're telling me you're not ready to do that, if you're not going to be, you don't want to be measured by the number of training that occurs, then we want to be measured by what systems have been put in place, how successful you were. Otherwise, this exercise becomes moot.
So Claudia, if I may, I think what you're saying, if we look at this action plan, and right now we have columns for overall goals, program goals, strategy for 25, 26, strategy for 26, 27, and 27, 28. I think what you're saying, Claudia, is that you'd like to see this document with a column somewhere, accomplishments as of date, whatever, against each item.
I would say so, yes. And again, we agreed not to lay the strategies out last year when we presented this proposal, because the staff needed a full cycle to assess the actual outcomes that occurred as a result of the various training strategies that we used. So now we're here. So I'm saying is we need to come up with a way to measure that.
So if I could suggest something, so as Marlena was talking about, it's Emily.
Oh, hi,
As Marlena was talking about the plan outline and how we're going to build that out, I think we can build in measurable objectives in there that will have,
Right.
what the objective is and when we hope to achieve it by. So for instance, we're doing the tranches of getting agencies into compliance plans, and we want to do a pilot. So let's get, we would have a timeline for when we would have the toolkit ready. Then we'd have a timeline for when we would start the pilot, and how many agencies that would be and how many agencies we get to implement that. And then we would have a timeline for when we are going to make changes and then go to the next set of agencies. So I think we can put timelines to all of that. And those objectives would be measurable, because we'd say, okay, the pilot is going to have 8 or 10 agencies, whatever our objective says, which still has to be determined, but that would be a way to measure how we're making progress on that plan. So it might be easier on the implementation side to develop those objectives that could be measured rather than like the big goals, right? Because the big goal is like the overarching. But when we're working on these plans, that will try to aim to implement those goals, we'll be able to have those objectives.
Will you be able to do that in time? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
in terms of
I don't think that'll
quantification-
be done in time for this March meeting, to be honest with you, no. We could, Marlena could again talk about, like we did here, the overarching plan outline and how we're gonna be working on that in the next month or so to put that together, that specific plan, similar to what we did when we partnered on the survey response communications plans that we did. You know, and we've completed all of those. We can put together objectives in that longer plan that would be shared with you at another time prior to it going to the full commission. It would be shared with the committee to make sure you're in line with what those objectives are and the implementation plan going forward.
Okay, so then when we go to our report out for this meeting would be one, we approve the proposal.
And the outline.
We approve the proposal. We have a specific outline with regard to strategies we want
Correct.
to impose to deal with some of the issues or the barriers that's impeding our efforts. And
Correct.
three, we're going to prepare in time for the April meeting, an update of our goals and objectives based on the experiences we had last year and some of the strategies that we proposed imposing for this year.
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah. And then the committee will be able to see that before it goes before the April, is it April? Before the April commission meeting.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily think we have to have a meeting. I know it's hard to pull everybody together, so if it's okay with the committee, we can try to, if it's just circulated to us and we have questions that we can answer one-on-one, I'd be comfortable with that unless the committee wants to meet in time for the April meeting.
We can circulate that.
Okay.
We'll be able
Yeah.
to circulate that. I did want to add in terms of quantification, I mean, we do have the experience
Go
of
back.
last year. We don't have all the numbers in yet, but we know that somewhere between 60 plus and maybe 80, low 80s% of the workforce was trained. So that's kind of a baseline of floor. We do know in the latter months of last year, 2025, the volume of trainings was fairly high, at least in the aggregate, enough, if it could be sustained on an annual basis to meet the overall objective. But we really need to assess that and
Right.
understand, what it will take to sustain
will-
those levels.
We were worried about not meeting our benchmarks, but at the end we came in because of some, I think it was MTA, some major accomplishments you achieved.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm comfortable with deferring that conversation to next month where we can present this include that data in an updated goal statement. I'm comfortable with that if you are.
Okay.
Solly, do you have something to say?
No, I said I'm as well.
Okay. Where's Jim? I can't see him. Jim? Is he going?
I'm here.
Do you have any
He's there.
comments?
No, I'm comfortable with that as well.
Okay. And Chair James?
It also makes sense to me.
Okay.
I was also just wondering, if there's any way maybe we could or should get someone from the governor's office to reach out, or in the cases of CUNYs and SUNYs, somebody from the
Chancellor.
the chancellor, to reach out to the delinquent folks and say, this is important. You have to have your employees trained.
Yeah, outreach
We-
to both of those constituencies is something that we've talked about at the higher level to see how we can partner with them. We haven't talked specifics of what that would look like. Maybe not to the individuals, but if they, reach out to the ethics officer.
No. I mean to the agent. They could reach out to the heads of the colleges or the heads of the medical schools or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, we have not done that per se, although we've had communications with SUNY.
I mean,
In
that's what
general,
I'm saying. That might be the next step. if,
Yes.
you know,
Well, no, no,
if we're still hitting walls.
Yes, and we have worked with the executive chamber to reach out to the agencies over which their personnel maintain direct supervision, and that has
Right.
been helpful in getting
Okay.
attention focused on the training requirements. So we have done that.
Mhm. Thank you.
But that's not to say that there isn't more to be done,
Right.
of course. And then with respect to the other components of the 25 to 28 plan, the various modules have been developed now. Some are still being finalized. So the work that Marlena and her team have been doing with PDP at Rockefeller College, that's nearing culmination. The MP4 module that we've talked about is now out there and being utilized. Well, so we've developed the multi-compatible modules. We've worked with those agencies, those authorities that have collective bargaining issues like MTA. So we've addressed that. So we've had that training plan in place, and that has contributed significantly to overall compliance. Other data adaptations still need to be developed. The team has been working with ITS and needs to work with ITS more to develop better ways of capturing data in some of these individualized learning management systems that agencies are using to schedule their trainings and to track the data from them. You know, we don't have complete fluency in between systems, so we need to work on that. There's a better flow of it. I'm trying to think. Anything else, Marlena, Adrienne, to focus on?
No, I believe you covered it all.
Could you speak to action item 4? I know we have budget limitations. Is that going to impact our desire to do to expand our research on effectiveness?
Our
I know we put
funding has not gotten better since we had the discussion, and so it will impact it. You know, from a purely abstract perspective, you know, maybe there's something to be learned, and we'll have the data available for study at some point. Whether agencies that are more or less compliant in having their workforces trained are experiencing different levels of ethical compliance, fewer conflicts of interest. But that's, you know, we'll have that data, but the analytics will have to wait till we can afford to bring in the expertise.
We do some analytics that we know right now with, like, for instance, the number of ethics inquiries that have increased year over year. It's making people more aware when they have to seek guidance on certain situations. The number of website views we have has more than doubled year over year, and that's all going to the ethics and training pages. So again, increasing awareness that they should look before they act and make sure they know the rules. So we do have some more generic ways of looking to know that we are making a difference without, you know, having a purely research-based analytical consultant come in to do that research. So we do know that it is having an effect.
Right. So I think we can simply, I'm comfortable with adjusting this goal to come up with a strategy that's more realistic based on our budgetary limitations and staffing limitations.
Great.
Okay. So we can work together before the meeting and come up with a document that we can circulate to the commissioners before it hits the board. Sure. So that they have the opportunity to respond to it before we submit it in April. Okay.
Yes.
Are there any other issues that we want to discuss before we adjourn this meeting? Before we adjourn, then I'd like to officially welcome Linda.
Thank you.
Meeting. I didn't realize we were gifted with the privilege.
Here we are.
Thank you for joining our committee. We look forward to working with you.
Thank
If
you.
there, if there's nothing else, I'd like to recommend that we, excuse my, like to recommend that we adjourn the meeting.
I don't think we need a vote, but
Yeah.
I think there's a consensus.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really
Thank
you.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone.
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye. I'll see
Thank
you in a
you.
few.
Bye-bye.